There, welcome to the channel. I'm Marguerite with Wreaths by Marguerite, and today I'm going to show you how to put this wreath together. This is one of my newest kits. I have 2 Patriotic wreaths coming out this year in the kit format. You'll be able to get the information in the description below if you're interested in a kit. So stick with me while I make this today. This is what's called a storm door wreath. A storm door wreath, if you didn't already know, is a wreath that is made so that it's under 4 inches thick. The reason that's important is if you have a storm door or a screen door and you want to put a wreath behind it against your regular door, this allows just enough space to do so without it crushing the wreath. So it looks big and fluffy from the front, right? But if you look at it from the side, it's super thin. See that? Crazy, right? Amazing what we can do. But yeah, that makes it perfect for that environment. It can be made for anywhere else. It doesn't have to go behind a storm or a screen door, but this gives people the opportunity to put something there without fear of losing it or it flying away or it looking really funky with the big traditional wreath. You have a, usually have a bunch of bows or a bow, and if you try to put it behind a screen or a storm door, it's going to crush it. It's not going to look good. You still have basically the same square feet of ribbon on a storm door wreath. It's just positioned differently on the wreath so that you can put something behind and protect it. I know where I live in southwest Nebraska, we have lots of wind all the time, so it's nice to be secure in the fact that my wreath is not going to fly down to the railroad tracks. So stick around, watch, and I'll show you step by step how to make this. I will mention in the video as well that there are tutorials from the beginning of 2024 that go into absolute intricate detail of putting this together. I do every step in this particular tutorial. I just don't cut every single piece of ribbon on camera with you. So you'll understand that more as you go along. So stay tuned. Let's do this together. Come on. Alrighty then, so let's first start with the supplies you get when you purchase a kit. You're going to get deco mesh. This is called a border mesh because the tinsel is down the sides of both sides of the mesh on the end. It's 10-inch mesh. That's the only size you really want to use on a storm door wreath. Let me put this aside so I can share the information on this with you. It's 10 inches this way, and I've pre-cut all the pieces for you at a 20-inch length. You don't really want to go any longer because it's a little redundant. Plus it gets in the way when you're ruffling it and placing it into the frame. So there's 12 pieces of deco mesh. You'll probably get 1 extra piece just in case. You'll get 3 different ribbons with the kit. In this particular design, I went with 2 that are 2.5 inches in width. And they're all folded at exactly 12 inches. You'll either get 1 or 2 bundles of each of the ribbon, depending on where it was in the roll when I was putting together your kit. But I always be sure to make sure that the color matches perfectly if I pull your ribbon from 2 different ribbon rolls. I can talk. So we have these stars and stripes. We have this checked red and white. And then I have a 1.5 inch solid white. I'm one of those people that like to break up the designs with the solid colored ribbon. You don't have to do that. That's entirely up to you if you're doing kits or doing projects on your own. But I like to do it this way. Okay? So like I said, they're all folded at 12-inch lengths. You have a minimum of 12 pieces of each of the designs. You need 12 to go in the frame, but you should have 13. That way, if you make any mistakes, you have a little leeway. I'm going to walk you through cutting the ribbon, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that point. We have a metal sign that says USA. I've already pre-attached your pipe cleaners to the back. There is a hook here. You can use that, but that's just not enough attachment for me to make sure it's secure. So in the metal signs, what I do is I put on cable tie mounts. They are like this. They are little black cable tie mounts. They make them in white too. I prefer the black ones. This is a 1x1 square. Let me bring that in. Let me see if I can bring that in to show you. Is it going to let me close that screen? See if I can bring that in nice and close to my hand. See that? It's a little black cable tie mount. You can buy them with or without adhesive on the back. Just depends on what your preference is. These all had the 3M adhesive on the back, but I still put, and I always advise you at least put a drop or so of a super glue. What I like to use is the Loctite super glue. There's a variety of different ones you can use. This one's a gel. I put that on the back after I've taken the cover off the adhesive, and then I place it on the sign. But I also put hot glue around it. Hot glue is not going to keep your cable tie mount on the metal year round. In extreme heat or extreme cold, it would just pop off if you had the hot glue on it. That's why it's important to have the super glue as well. That makes it sustainable through all seasons. But I do this to make sure I can use the sign right away if I'm doing a project right away. Plus, it doesn't hurt. It's a little extra. And then I've taken 2 pipe cleaners and cut them in half. So there's 2 between all 4 corners. And I've attached them to the cable tie mounts. Let's bring you back out now. If it'll let us. There we go. Oh, look at that big picture. I've never done that on the iPad before. Okay, squirrel moment. Sorry, guys. So let this cure for at least, 15 minutes to half an hour, which is usually the time you get minimum to put your wreath together by the time you put your sign on. So there's the sign. I'm going to set that aside because we aren't going to need it for a while. And then you have a frame. This is a 14¼ inch frame that has 4 rings on it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you can see that better. There we go. There's 4 rings, and then there's 6 crossbars. All right? So you're going to make sure that you put 6 of your pipe cleaners on the outside 2 rings, which I've done for you. So this is rings 1 and 2. So these are attached where the crossbars are permanently attached to the frame. And then the other 6 go on rings 3 and 4 in between the crossbars. I have done this for you in the kits, so you don't have to worry about that. But that's how you do it. Anything else doesn't really work for this style of wreath. As far as wireframes, you got to have the 4 rings. 3 won't work. You got to have the 4 rings, and you got to have the 6 crossbars, okay? So, like I said, I've already pre-attached them. So the first thing I want to do to start putting my project together is I'm going to open the pipe cleaners on the outer 2 rings horizontal to me. And when you're working with the frame, make sure the pipe cleaner that you're working with is directly in front of you. Don't reach across the table. And you can do that, but I'm telling you now, you're going to be achy in your back and other things if you don't make the wreath do the work for you instead of you doing the work for the wreath. Hopefully that makes sense. So I open that one, I'm turning it. I open that one, turn it, and then same thing all the way around. If you notice, the other ones are facing the inside. The other 6 are facing the inside of the frame. That's because we want them out of the way till we're ready to use them, because we're going to use the outside 6 first. We're not going to work on the ribbon yet. I'm going to put that aside. Alright, we're going to start with mesh. One of my favorite tools is a chip clip. Let's go over the rest of the tools. A good pair of scissors. I use the Fiskar brand. They're my favorite. Some needle nose in case you need to pull something through. Some wire cutters. And I use this embroidery needle to help pull the pipe cleaners on the back of my sign through the mesh. I'm not sure if you can see that with the purple as well. You'll see as I go. So that's your basic tools, most of which you have around the house. If you have a good pair of scissors that you're going to use for this, don't let anybody use them for anything else. They will be more than difficult to cut the ribbon, and you'll end up fraying it more. Alright, I always recommend having a good cutting mat, because you're also going to need it to cut your mesh if you're doing this on your own. Of course, with this project, you get everything pre-cut except for the ribbon. This is a this is how you cut the mesh on the cutting mat without cutting your table. It's a rotary cutter. It's often used for quilts, but it is one of our main tools in wreath making. So let me put that away. Always keep the safety on it so no one gets cut. So what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the outer 6 pieces of mesh. And when I attach them to the pipe cleaners, I put them in every other pipe cleaner. So I do the first 3 and then go back and do the other 3. When doing the Storm Door style wreath, I find that helps the wreath lay flatter, because our goal is to keep the wreath under 4 inches deep. So that's just another tip from my experience to share with you. If you want to just start in one place and go all the way around, that's entirely up to you. Everything, for the most part, that I'm teaching you in these tutorials is guidelines. There's no perfect science to any of this. It's all how you want to do it. But I found after making close to 2,000 wreaths, these tips I'm giving you serve me the best to do the best job, get the best looking product, and get it done quickly. Because I do craft shows, so I don't want to be sitting here all day long working on one wreath, if you know what I mean. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to turn your first piece of mesh, curl side down. It's got a natural curl from being on the roll. You want to make sure that curl side is down, and in this case, especially because it has the tinsel in here, it looks pretty close to the same on both sides. I just think it's a little bit shinier on top than it is on the bottom, so that's important too. Now, since this is 10-inch mesh, we want to measure to find our center. It's really easy. You just have to take one side to the other side, fold it in half, and I use that chip clip right here to hold it in place. And then I turn it around. You can also use a ruler, but doing it this way is also one less tool you need in your arsenal to put it together, okay? But you can absolutely do that. Your cutting mat has all of the measurements on it too as well. They have them in all sorts of sizes and colors, but since I'm a purple-aholic, mine had to be purple. Alright, so we're going to go onto this side now, and we're going to do the exact same thing as we did on the other side, but we're not going to clip it because we are going to immediately gather it into our thumbs with all of our fingers crawling up towards the clip. I recommend bringing it towards you as you are ruffling it, so that, again, you're not putting that strain on the back. You're making the product work for you and not the other way around. Minimize your aches and pains and Tylenol use later. Okay, so I'm going to fold it in half again. I'm going to find my center. I pretty much had my fingers there in the first place because I've been doing this for so long, but, you know, live and learn. Just so you're just folding it in half, find your center, and you're putting the thumbs on the outside of the mesh, and you're gathering right up the center using all of your fingers. For the first 6 pieces of mesh, I'm going to do it this technique, and then the top 6 pieces of mesh, I'm going to show you a slightly different technique. You decide what is best for you in your wreath making. So I notice I've gathered it all the way to the top. I'm pulling the clip off and putting my fingers on the outside. So I'm putting my index finger on one side and my thumb on the other, and I'm holding it loosely. The reason I'm doing that is I'm going to want to adjust the mesh so that it's as close to a perfect circle as possible. But we don't want to pull on the outside edges, because if you do that, that could change the pattern in the tinsel or the mesh. And the outer edge of your mesh is what is going to be seen the most. So I'm holding it loosely right now, and I'm going to grab it up towards my thumb and finger if I need to make any adjustments. What I'm looking to do is make sure these 2 edges match up. They may not look like a circle perfectly in your hand, but they are matched up. Let me pull this side over here a little bit to get these matched up. Don't grab out here. Grab down by your other fingers. First, your index finger. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, and then we're going to come over to the frame. The frame is going to have the pipe cleaner you're going to work with directly in front of you, horizontally with the pipe cleaner. So you're going to put your mesh in vertically. I'm going to stick it in that spot, and I'm a little awkward because I haven't made a wreath in a week, believe it or not. But by the time you get the first couple pieces of mesh in, it just becomes motor memory. So I'm going to take that pipe cleaner and twist it tightly, really low. And then I'm going to twist it 1, 2 or 3 times, very low to the frame. Why is that important? Again, we're trying to keep it under that 4 inches deep on the wreath so it can fit behind the storm door. Well, obviously right now it doesn't look anything like a circle, at least from my perspective. I've got it sticking out way over here and it's dipping in on this side. So if you need to make any adjustments on your mesh once you get it into the frame, I always recommend if you're going to pull it out, you grab right down by the base of the pipe cleaners. Let me come in a little closer. So that you can pull from here. You never again want to pull from the outer edge because that will change your design on your mesh, and we don't want to do that. So again, first of all, we're looking to make sure these outer edges are matching up. This is sticking out about 1.5 inches past the edge of this one. So I'm going to grab this one at the base on that side, pull it up a little bit, and now we're even, okay? I know this point's sticking out too far over here just from looking at it visually, but also if you look at it in the camera, that's helpful. So I'm going to, first of all, this is dipping in. I'm going to bring that out a little bit and see if it makes a difference in this piece of the ruffle. And I said to do the pipe cleaners tight, but not so tight that you can't tug right next to the pipe cleaner a little to adjust it, okay? And this is still sticking out a little bit far for me, so I'm going to grab it. This is dipped in, so where this is dipped in is probably where it's going to pull in on the other side. So, alright, this needs to come out a little. You can always take it out of the frame and put it back in, but the less you handle the mesh, just like anything, the better for you. Also, at this point, I should always remember the beginning, and I always forget, make sure you're not wearing good clothes when you're building these. And preferably short sleeves, because deco mesh is very much like Velcro. It'll attach itself to anything. You want to have 3 feet to 4 feet of space to work in and no sleeves. If you have sleeves, please roll them up. Okay, so the next step is taking the outside cut edge on one side and placing it over the cut edge on the inside of the ruffle. So outside edge over inside cut edge. Now, I guess from pulling it, I pulled it way too far, so let me adjust that. Right there at the pipe cleaner. I need to get that back out there where it belongs. There we go. Just a little bit more. We're looking to try to make sure it's as close to a perfect circle as we can, knowing that nothing in life is perfect. So then I just usually take the outer edges of the mesh and try to turn them under. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't. They do a better job once more of the mesh is in there because they stick to each other. Alright? Not my greatest circle, but you know what? There we go. Alright, so remember, I said skip one, so we're going to put a piece of mesh into that one. Same routine. Curl side down. I usually use the table to uncurl it. Fold it in half on one end. Put a clip in the center. Just a chip clip, any kind of clothespin, whatever you have around. Don't go out and buy any special tools unless you decide this is something you want to do long term. I'm going to bring that up. Fold it in half. I know that's where I need to ruffle. Thumbs on the outside of the mesh. And then just ruffle up the center. Get about here. I'm going to bring it down to me. Keep ruffling to the top. And put the clip off. Bring that last little bit into your thumb and forefinger. That went a little bit better. So I always like to look at it at this point too and see which side looks more rounded and perfect and make sure that's on the outside of the frame before I go over there. So pipe cleaner's vertical. I turn it a little to the side. I don't know if that's because I'm left-handed. So if you're looking at me thinking I'm doing it backwards, I might be, unless you're left-handed. I am definitely left-handed. So I'm going to bring that up vertically, holding it in place while I bring the pipe cleaner up. Twist it tight and low to the frame. And then as I'm twisting it the other 2 to 3 times, I'm keeping it tight and low. And once I'm done, I lift it up in the air to get it out of the way, because we don't need it till it's time to put ribbon on. So now I'm going to take, and this is pretty much lined up well, and this one too. See what I said? The first one is always I don't know, difficult, for lack of a better way to pull it. I'm going to pull this out a little bit because it dips in a little bit extra. So that's got a better curvature to it. So now I'm going to go ahead and put that outside cut edge of the mesh over the inside cut edge of the mesh. Same thing on this side, outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. This is dipping in a little bit there too. So let me reach under there and pull that out a little bit. On the bottom layer of mesh, keep in mind the only part that's going to be seen is this very outer edge. So this is what's important to keep rounded. And this is really dipping in. So let me see. Gotta look. Don't want that. You want a nice, beautiful curve on the outside. And see how some of this keeps popping up? Turning it under helps to stop the popping up a little bit. But also keep in mind when you get to the next three pieces, they're going to help hold it down more, and then ribbon and then another layer of mesh will hold it all down better so it won't be so poofy. If you don't care if it's poofy, if you're not putting it behind a screen door, that's fine too. But it's important to take these steps if you want to keep it under the 4 inches for a storm door. So we're going to skip that and we're going to come to this one. We're going to get another piece of mesh. Open that up, have that all ready. I'm going to use the table to uncurl it, curl side down, fold it in half evenly so you can mark the center with the clip. It also helps hold the clip also helps hold the mesh down so that as you're ruffling, it's not curling up on you. That's aggravating, to say the least. So we're taking this end, folding it in half, putting the thumbs on the outside of the mesh, and just start ruffling with all your fingers. Smaller ruffles are better. You'll get more ruffle to it, more curvature to your ruffle. Some people very meticulously accordion fold it. It's really not necessary. If that's what you want to do, just remember, go for it. It's your project. Let me bring that out. Fingers up under there. Grab it all the way down. I'm not grabbing it on the end. Alright. Out. Alright, that's about right. There we go. I like that edge, so I'm going to put that out. So the pipe cleaners are horizontal. The mesh goes in vertically. So remember that, mesh. Pipe cleaners horizontal, mesh vertical. It's different with the ribbon, so remember that. Horizontal pipe cleaner, vertical mesh. Tight and low 2 to 3 times with the twists to keep the thickness of the wreath down to 4 inches. Take the outside cut edge over the inside cut edge, the outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. Why do I do it that way? Why is the outside cut edge over the inside cut edge? Why do I do it so that the cut edges are horizontal to me? I do that because it minimizes the exposure of the cut sides of the mesh to getting snagged on other things. The less that happens, the less it's going to fray. Mesh is going to fray. There's no way around it. Some people use a wood burner to cut their mesh. It helps. But you're not going to be handling the mesh for a long enough period of time that you really need to go to that extent. When you do something called a UITC board, you can look that up. Maybe someday I will do one of those types of wreaths. It's important to do that because the fraying is a real problem when you're trying to do that kind of wreath. Okay, so that one's ready to go. So we have the first 3 done. So it's now time to go back and do the 3 pieces in between. Making sure my pipe cleaners are still horizontal. They get messed up a little when you're working on it. And we're going to go back and do the next 3. Move that back out of the way. Use the table to unroll this. Curl side down. Fold it in half. Put that there. it in half on the end you're going to start on, and start ruffling. Thumbs outside of the mesh, all your other fingers are ruffling, doing your best to stay right in the center. The chip clip is also a visual guide to make sure that you stay centered when you are ruffling your mesh. So it serves a couple purposes, doesn't it? Take that off. We're at the end. Put it in my thumb and forefinger loosely. Make any adjustments I need to make and bring it over to the frame. Pipe cleaners are horizontal and the mesh goes in vertically. This is definitely a two-handed process. 3 if you were lucky. That is why I make sure all the pipe cleaners are positioned 1, 2, 3, so that I'm not having to finagle them open when it's time to put the mesh in. I got a couple of pieces that are fraying off, so I'm cutting them as I go so that I don't have to go back and look for them later. I'm going to take that outside cut edge over the inside cut edge on one side, and the outside cut edge over the inside cut edge on the other side. I'm going to play with that there. That needs to come out a little bit, so I'll grab it all the way up here to bring it out. Okay, but now, there you go. That's going to hold the side ones, the pieces of mesh to the side down a little bit more too. And then ultimately the sign on the top will help as well, okay? Let's get another piece. Or 3, I'm kidding. Do this one. You'll notice as I get down deeper into the roll of mesh that the curls are tighter. That's also why the chip clip is so helpful, because it's going to curl like crazy when you try to use it. Sometimes I even use the wire cutters or my phone to lay on it so that they stay open. Okay. Fold in half. Clip in the center. And do the same on the other end and start ruffling. Fold in half. Find your center. Thumbs outside. Rest of the fingers ruffle the center. You can go as slowly or as quickly in this process as you want. I find that when I have a day where I'm making a lot of product, I get a lot faster. It's muscle memory, you know what I mean? Take the clip off. Bring that last piece into your index finger. Make sure these are all the right width. Lining them up. This is way, no, it's not way in. It just looked like it. You see all this. Okay, I'm going to take it vertically over to my horizontal pipe cleaner. Place it in the pipe cleaner, centered. Take that pipe cleaner tight and low 2 to 3 times. 1, 2, 3 twists. Lift it up out of the way. And it doesn't matter that now that I've done that, this side is shorter than that side. It has no factor in making this wreath. So I'm taking that outside cut edge over the inside cut edge on that side. Outside cut edge over the inside cut edge on this side. And you'll notice now I gotta finagle it a little bit more. I like that word, finagle, because the other mesh is in there already. Somewhere between ruffling it and putting it in the wreath, I ended up way off in my placement on this side. So I'm adjusting it there. That's too far in right there. Bring that out. And then that one needs to go out there. Alright, let's see how that looks. Let me hold it up to show you too. See? It's going to lay down a lot more than it is right now once we get to it. Alright, let's get this one more piece. And the first layer of mesh will be done. Alright, uncurl it with the table, curl side down always, fold it in half, flip it in the center. Now, since this is solid colored in the middle, or if you use a solid colored mesh, it's so important to have that clip as well for guidance. But if you have a mesh that has stripes or plaid checks in them, You may not have to use the clip to keep on center. I find that I do a much better job with those, keeping the center, because you have an actual line to follow in the mesh. It's not so easy with this solid colored mesh in the center. Using the lines on the table can also help the cutting board. Just some things to consider. So thumbs outside, gather up the middle. I just find using that clip in the top really does a lot to help me stay on center when I'm ruffling. Okay, put that in there. Okay, bring this up a little bit. And then bring this down a little bit. And then let's take this over to the frame. So the mesh is always vertical. The pipe cleaners are horizontal. Okay, tighten low. Ooh, lost my grip. Tighten low 2 to 3 times. Then you're taking your outside cut edge over your inside cut edge. Perfect circles or almost perfect circles are great, but always remember, you just want to make sure you get a nice curve on the outside and that one poof isn't too far out from the frame than the other. You want it to look nice and circular. So let me see what we got going on here. Do I need, that one's getting in the way. Cut some fray off. Let's get these off of here. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. This needs to be adjusted out. There. Trying to make sure this is nice and circular. Alright, so there's your first layer of mesh. It's now time to play with the ribbon. We're going to prep the ribbon all together all at once so that when we get to the top layer, we have it all ready to go. I've already prepared the ribbon bundles, the ribbon tail bundles for all but 4. I'm going to walk you through step by step on this. And then ultimately you're going to have bundles that look like this. I've already placed the ribbons in the bundle in the position that I want them placed and seen on the wreath. So I have the stars and stripe on top with the solid colored white in the middle and then the red and the check on the bottom, okay? So like I said, when you get your ribbon, you're going to come in bundles where they're folded. They're all pre-folded at 12 inches in length because that's the length of the ribbon tails that we want for this wreath. If you're doing this on your own, 12, 13, 14, I wouldn't go any bigger than 14. 12 is standard and easy because again, you don't need a bunch of tools that you probably don't have in the house if you're just starting with this. Just take a ruler and wrap your ribbon around the ruler. That'll get you the pieces. So you need 12. So you had 12 pipe cleaners, 12 pieces of mesh, 12 pieces of each of the ribbons you're using. And I explained what I was using in this. You can use 2 to 3 ribbons in a wreath design like this. I could take this out and just have these 2. Or I could take one of these out and the 2.5 inch and just use these. I would recommend not, you can do 3 1.5 inch style ribbons, but you don't get as much coverage on the mesh. It just depends on how much of the mesh you want to be seen. I like the less, the better shown, except for this beautiful edge, because this mesh is really just the solid foundation to your bra to hold solid foundation to your wreath to hold your ribbon up, just like a bra works as a solid foundation for a woman, okay? That's the comparison we like to use. So they're all pre-folded in 12 to 13 inch 12 to 13 piece bundles. So when you're cutting them, what I recommend is you open it up to the center. So you'll have half your bundle with the finished side facing to the left and half of your finished side facing to the right. I always put a couple fingers in there. And then I cut from one end, and then I cut the other. Then what I do is I take them all, I take the bottom of the stack and flip them over so all of them have the finished side of the ribbon facing the ceiling. Okay, let me do this one next. I'll do the solid colored one last because I'll explain something to you at that point. So, same thing. Got my bundle split in half with the finished side facing to the left on that side of the bundle and the finished side facing the right on that side of the bundle. Those are tongue twisters apparently. So I'm cutting at the top And I'm cutting at the bottom. Did I go all the way through? Nope. And I'm taking the bottom of the bundle and turning it on top of the bundle, so all of the finished sides of the ribbon are facing the ceiling, okay? Now, solid colored ribbon. It's very difficult to, not impossible, but very difficult to determine what the front finished side and the back of the ribbon is. So when I cut my solid colored ribbon, I do the same thing. I find the center, I put a couple of fingers in there, I cut at one end, and then I cut at the other end, and I immediately turn the bottom over on top of the bundle, so that I now know that all my finished sides of the solid white ribbon are facing the ceiling. But the next step needs to be done right away, in my opinion, so that you don't question yourself as you're assembling your wreath. I immediately fold it in half so that the finished side of the ribbon is on the inside. I'm going to do that with all 4 of these that I'm using for the demonstration. Okay, so we know that the finished side is on the inside of these ribbon tails. Why I find it so important is, number one, then that way you're not questioning where the finished side is of the ribbon. And second, because if you have to walk away from the table and come back, and for some reason it's been knocked down and knocked off the table or moved around, you're going to be looking at your ribbon and you're going to get frustrated and you're going to go, which is the right side and the wrong side? Now, to be completely honest, most people don't notice it, but us makers, you know, it's something that really bothers us. So this is one of the steps that I take to make sure that I don't have to live with wondering, is that the right side or the wrong side? I'm also clipping this one on the end. The wire likes to settle sometimes after you cut it, and sometimes a little bit of the wire will stick out beyond the edge of the ribbon, and that's okay. You just trim it off, okay? So we've done that with that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the other 2 styles of ribbon, making sure that the finished side is on the inside of my fold. There's 3. There's 4. Some people do it the other way. I encourage you to do it this way. Now this is also directional ribbon. I'll go over that a little more when we get ready to put it into the wreath. Explain why that is another consideration. Okay, but first we're going to cut all our tails. I've already pre-cut the rest of the bundles. We need 12 complete bundles. There's enough for 13, but like I said, the extras are there in case you make a mistake. If you're a beginner and you're buying kits like this, I would always recommend cutting each piece individually so that if you make a mistake, you're only making a mistake on one piece and not the whole bundle. Yeah, trust me. Trust the process. So these are all done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep these now so that they have dovetails just like this. See how there's a V at the end? Let me bring that in a little bit. See how there's a V on the end? It's either called a dovetail, ducktail, whatever you want to call it, V. I call them dovetails. That's what I was taught when I learned. So what we're going to do is we're going to take each piece of ribbon, and this is very important. You're going to take the side you folded and place it on the table. And then you're going to make sure the wires on both sides are evenly against each other and fold it in half, wire to wire, evenly. So now you have a new fold here and your wires on the outside. You're going to take and you're going to cut from the new fold to the top of the wire at a 45-degree angle and cut your V's, okay? And you do that every time. Fold it side down on the table. Fold it wire to wire, cut from the new fold to the wire at a 45-degree angle. Keep it at the very top of the wire when you're cutting so you don't lose any length in your tail. Folded side down, wire to wire, cut from the fold to the wire. Okay. Once again, folded side down, wire to wire evenly, cut from the fold to the wire. And I always recommend, especially if you're new, fold it side down, fold it in half, cut it from the fold to the wire. I always recommend that you hold it like this so that you're cutting from the fold to the ceiling. It's a habit I created, and it keeps me out of trouble 99% of the time. Fold in half, cut from the fold to the tip of the wire. Fold it in half, cut from the fold to the wire. Don't do it way down here because you're going to lose length. You need to make sure you keep it at the very tip top of that wire when you're cutting. Alright, fold it in half, wire to wire, making sure they're nice and even. Cut from the fold to the wire in an upward 45-degree angle towards the ceiling. Okay, now we're doing the 1.5 inch, same process. You can also use 4.5 inch ribbons on these projects too. When I use a 4.5 inch ribbon, I usually use a 4.5 inch ribbon and one of these 2.5 inch ribbons. I usually stay away from 1.5 if I do that. And then I only use one 4.5, fold it in half, cut from the fold to the wire, because it's enough. If you put 3, it's a bit much when you have a 4-inch ribbon. If you do 3 ribbons, fold it side down, fold it in half, cut it from the fold to the wire. We have one more. Fold it side down, fold the wires, wire to wire, cut from the new fold to the tip of the wire. Now, if you want to see me cut every single piece, there's 36 pieces in this particular project. I have lots of content on the page. If you go back to the beginning videos from the beginning of 2024, excuse me, you'll see me do every step and every detail. If you need that kind of guidance, it's there for you. It's all free. So now I've cut all my ribbon. I'm going to put them on the table in the order that they're going to go on the wreath. And I'm going to put the top ribbon inside the second ribbon, if it lets me. And then I'm going to put it in the bottom ribbon. So now they're in the order that I'm placing them and want them to be seen in the wreath. Okay? So that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, there's all our bundles. Now I'm going to take the extras I have to give you some troubleshooting advice. So, there's a couple of things that you can do that will be incorrect for making these tails. And one of them is if you take your folded side down and you fold your ribbon in half, but you don't quite meet the edge with the wires. So it's kind of hard to see. I put this in about 1/4 inch just to make an extreme point. All right, I'm going to not make sure that it's lined up, and I'm still going to cut from the new fold to the end of the wires. But if you look at it now, this is a much thinner tip, and that's a much wider tip. This is a mistake that you can recover from. All you do is you go back and you make sure it is correctly folded in half evenly, making sure your wires are even. Making sure your wires are even there. It's hard to tell, but there's a little bit of gap. We're just going to cut the gap away, starting at the tip where we started cutting last time and going to the top of the wire where we did last time. And it's just going to take that little bit off so that now the tip on both sides are even. Okay. I'm going to use this one again to do the next example. Okay. So we're not wasting product. So this time I'm going to fold it in half, making sure that folded side is down. I'm going to cut it, but I'm going to go way down here and cut a V. Way down here. See that? It's way more than a 45-degree angle. Cut it off. Look how deep it is. While that may be pretty, when you cut a V that deep and you put it into your project, it's going to do this buckling thing. And you can't, that doesn't look good. You can fix that. You're going to lose a little length to your ribbon tail. All you have to do is you go back to where you fold it in half, go back to where you started cutting it, but bring your scissors over, not there, bring them back over to that 45-degree angle. Oop. And you've recovered that. It's just going to be that much shorter. It's up to you if you want to use that piece. Okay. I'm going to use the white one to show you the last thing that can happen if you're not careful. And this you can't recover from. So I'm going to be busy doing whatever I'm doing, not paying attention. And somehow my fold ends up and I don't notice it. And the cut sides are facing the table, which is a no. I'm going to fold it in half like I'm supposed to. I'm going to cut it at a 45-degree angle like I'm supposed to. But now you have two pieces of ribbon. You can't use that unless you can find a way to fuse that together. And you could use that way, but I wouldn't advise it. So that's a no-no. But I've given you one of each of the pieces of ribbon so that if you do make a mistake, you have a little bit of backup. I don't give you much more than that because the idea is to keep these kits affordable. So there's not a lot of extra product in there. Making a mess. Let's do a little cleanup here. So keep that in mind. Again, all of these things are super detailed in the original YouTube posts from the beginning of 2024. So you can refer back to that if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, okay? So now it's time to put in our first layer of ribbon tails. We're going to want to go around the wreath. And we're going to now want your pipe cleaners to be vertical. When putting in the mesh, the pipe cleaners are horizontal. When you're putting in the ribbon tails, the pipe cleaners are vertical. Okay? So one way, one way the other. So with mesh, horizontal. With ribbon, vertical. Notice I'm turning the wreath as I go. This is way too far out. Let's see. Where is... So that's going to be probably right there. I need to pull. If you're ever unsure of how your project looks when you're making it, take an overhead shot with the camera on your phone, and it's amazing how much you'll see through the camera that you miss with the naked eye. Okay? Giving it a little 1-2 here. Okay. So, pipe cleaner, vertical. Okay? So, let's now talk about this Stars and Stripe ribbon before we put them in. This is what's called directional ribbon. That means it's not exactly the same on the whole design. This, no matter how you put it in the frame, it's going to look exactly the same, okay? Or in your project. Solid, same thing. Here, if you put it in this way, you're going to see this side on the outer edge. If you put it in this way, you're going to see the stars on the outer edge. Anytime you have words or patterns where they all go the same direction, or like this, that's directional ribbon, and it's important to have a plan before you start putting it into the wreath. What I'm going to do is I could either do all of them exactly the same with the stars on the outside or the stripes on the outside, but I like to mix it up a little bit to give it a little bit more dimension. So the first 3 I put in, I'm going to have the blue on the outside, and the second 3 I put in, I'm going to have the red and white stripe on the outside, okay? So they're folded in half in their bundles. Let me turn it back around. So on the bottom layer, we're going to ruffle the ribbon and then create an upside down V, or what's called an inverted V, because we're going to put it in the frame, and we want to make sure as much of the ribbon ends are facing the outside of the wreath as possible, because on the bottom layer, all you're going to see is the tips of the ribbon. So I'm going to ruffle it up in the middle where the fold was. That's another reason why we fold them like that. I'm holding it with my thumb and forefinger, and I'm going to pull both sides down towards the edge of the table, making sure each side of the bundle is even as possible. And I'm going to come over and put it into the pipe cleaner. Now, if you tighten up your pipe cleaner and then make the V, it's less likely to stay facing the edge of the wreath. So I emphatically reinforce that you make that inverted V before you put it in the pipe cleaner. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that pipe cleaner and bring it up, and we're going to tightly twist it 2 to 3 times. 1, 2, 3. But then we're going to twist it upwards till we create a minimum of a 1-inch twist. Right here I have almost 2. And then we're going to cut off the excess above the inch or so and throw it away. And we're going to tuck that twisted edge of the pipe cleaner into the frame towards the back. Okay? And now we are going to fan out our ribbon. And I always start with the back, so I bring the top 2 pieces of ribbon up, position the bottom one. I'm running my fingers over the edges as I'm placing it. Do the same thing with the white one. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the top one. Now, with all the gathering down in here, it tends to bundle up and create like what we call bubbles. So I push them up with my fingers to get the bubbles out. And then on this side, I'm going to do it in the opposite order. I'm still going to start with the bottom. I'm going to lift the top 2 up, and I'm going to pull on it a little bit. You can pull on it. Don't be afraid of it, so that it's open all the way to the pipe cleaner. Bring the red one down, the white one always in the center, and then the stars and stripes up on top. So I like to hold it in the center once I'm done and pull them all down. Never pull them from the tips of the ribbon because that's cut, and the more you handle those tips, the more likely they are going to fray. Not nearly as bad as the mesh frays, but the less you handle the tips that are cut, any cut places on your project, the better. I push it down like that a little bit because that flattens it out a little bit more, because I want this to be a storm door wreath. So let's pull that up so you can see. Okay. And again, we're going to do every other just like we did with the mesh. So I'm just going to bring it back up. And I got to remember that I'm doing every other with the blue stars on the stars and stripe ribbon to the outside edge of the wreath, because the 3 that go in between it will have the stripes facing the outside edge of the wreath. So I'm ruffling, I'm making the inverted V, I'm coming back over here to the pipe cleaner that's vertical, twisting it tight and low 2 to 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Because remember, it's all about keeping it thin. Then the rest of the way, twist up, cut the excess above the twist off, tuck that end into the wreath, and position your ribbon. Okay, up. I pull it pretty aggressively, and it doesn't hurt it. That's why we use good quality ribbon. Nothing thin. Be careful it doesn't catch on anything. That darn mesh is like Velcro. That one has a piece of the wire that caught on me, so that's going to catch on everything. Let's get that off there. Alright. On the bottom layer, first level, we want to make sure that the ribbon's as flat as possible. We don't really want to curl it, but we do want to run our fingers over the edges to make sure it's straight and not wrinkled, and get these bubbles out where we can. Remembering that on the second side, I'm doing the opposite order. Red to the outside, white in the middle, stars and stripe to the top. So I'm going to put my hand on it, not grab the ribbon at the end, position it how I want it. I'll move on, skipping one, going here. Pardon. All this talking gets you dry. Now, if the ribbon creeps up a little bit as you're creating the rest of the wreath, do not go back and fix it. You want to do that at the end. I always come back to the fact that you want to handle the product as little as possible to keep it from fraying. It's going to try to crawl up under the next level of layer of mesh, so just ignore it for now. We'll fix it. So I'm ruffling where it was folded, creating an inverted V, coming in here, tight and low with the pipe cleaner 2 to 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Up and out, up and away till I make a 1-inch or so twist. Cut the excess off, tuck that into the mesh, and then position my ribbon. Lifting up, placing where I want it to stay, running my fingers over it. If that pops back out, just shove it back in there. Just shows how much pulling I'm doing on the ribbon. This one's trying to hide already. Okay. Alright, bring these top 2 up. You always try to work from the bottom up so you're not going back, because you're going to end up messing what's on top if you do top first. I'm holding it down so I can make sure it's all positioned how I want. That looks like it might be out too far, so I'm going to pull some of this mesh back in. Because we don't want it round and then stick out. That's not how it's supposed to look. We want a nice, clean circle. Okay, so now the first 3 are done. So now we're going to go back and do the other 3. And now we just have to remember with the stars and stripes that the red and white stripe is going to be to the outside of the wreath now. And once I lay it on there, more and more of this is going to lay flatter and flatter. Okay? The mesh, that is. Inverted V, making sure it's even on both sides of your bundles. Put it in that pipe cleaner. Twist tight and low 2 to 3 times. And then upwards to make that 1-inch twist. Cut the excess off. Now, you may or may not do it exactly the same on the top layer, but when we get there, I'll explain to you the difference in the top and the bottom with the pipe cleaner. So lift and separate. You notice I turn the wreath to the position I want to work on it in and not reaching around and doing it up here. It's coming to me. Lift, separate, get those bubbles out, place your ribbon. You can do them all the same on both sides. That's up to you, but like I said, I like to give it some dimension. That's what I say. It's my story and I'm sticking to it. So see, this should be on top of that ribbon on each side. See so far? I know it doesn't look like a lot yet because it's just the bottom layer, but we're getting there. Okay, next one. Ruffle up the center, inverted V. Make sure you put enough ruffles in there. Even on each side of the center, into the pipe cleaner. Tight and low, 1, 2, 3. Then up, up, up. Cut that off. Tuck that in. Lift and separate. Running your finger over the ribbon, putting it in place, and trying it to do this side. Lift and separate. Bring this all in place. I'm holding it down so it doesn't get too thick. I find that it works. If you don't like that, don't do it that way. Last one for this layer, ruffle the center, holding the thumb and forefinger, invert the ribbon, put it in the pipe cleaner, tight and low, 1, 2, 3, and then up, up, up. Now you can see why it wasn't so important, especially on this layer, that the pipe cleaners were different lengths after I put the mesh in. That's a little long. Get rid of a little bit more of that. Just tuck that in, position my ribbon. Side lift, separate. You notice I am not handling the end of the ribbon. That keeps it from fraying. Alright, so here's our first layer. Starting to come together. Now we're going to take and we are going to bring these pipe cleaners from the back towards the front. And you're bringing it up in between each of the pieces of mesh on each side of it. So this comes up here. This comes up here. This one comes up here. This comes up here. This one here. And this one here. So you have 6. Make sure you have 6 pulled forward. And then as they are in front of you, you're going to put them horizontal again. Because mesh, we need the pipe cleaners horizontal to put the mesh in vertically. Okay? Why is that out there? There you go. That needs to come in. Is that that same one? There we go. Oh, there you go. And yes, the ribbon on this layer that we've done so far gets a little bit disturbed from us handling things on top of it. But like I said, wait till the end when we make sure everything's in the right place to handle it. Fix it then. Alright, so it's back to putting the mesh on. We're going to put one in every other and then go back to do the other three. Again, curl side down. I like to use the table. Well, that's two of them. We only need one. Curl side down. Fold it in half, clip it in the center, lay it down, do the same thing on the other end, and ruffle. Now remember I said I was going to do it a little differently on the top layer. I am starting out exactly the same, but then what I do a lot of times is I put my one hand on the mesh above, because also the curls are tighter and the mesh fights you a little bit more, so I found that this technique helps me get the results I need. And I just think that the ruffles look better when I do it that way. Could be my imagination. Give it a shot and see what you think. Okay. What is this one? Okay. Let's put this in here. I don't think this one. Never mind that one. Ignore it for now. Let's do this one. Oh, on the top layer. That's right. On the top layer, I had two different kinds of mesh I put with this kit. Lord help me. Okay. This one, don't fall off the chair, Marguerite. This one, we have two different meshes. This one's not tinsel, this one is. So that was right with that. What's going to happen is we're going to put in 3 of these and then we're going to put in 3 of these. That's what I'm all right. You separate them now so I don't forget again and confuse you guys. Don't want to do that. There's the top 3. And there's the bottom 3. And there's one extra, but I don't need that. I can, if I remember at the end, I'll tell you what you could do with the spare piece if you don't need it for your project. Okay, let's get this act together, Marguerite. Shall we? All right, back to the table. Fold it in half. All the excitement, I couldn't. There's my clip. There we go. See how tight that curl is? Compared to that one. All right. Hold it with one hand. Crawl up the middle with the other one. Get it to the top. Hold it with the finger and forefinger and thumb. I almost said a thumb and finger. I'm alright. I don't usually cut the bloopers out, so you get to experience them as they happen. 1, 2, 3. Tight and low. I twisted those tight and low. So I'm bringing that outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. The outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. Alright. Can we fix this, Marguerite? Outside cut edge. On the inside cut edge. Okay. Notice I'm adjusting it, but I'm not grabbing it from out here where the design is because I don't want to screw that up. Skip that one, go here, and I'm again going to use the non-tinsel version because we're skipping one. Use a table to uncurl it. It is super curly, so it's fighting me. Just be patient with it. It's worth the effort. Fold it in half. See, this one doesn't have a red because it's got the red to begin with in the border stripe. Now, since there's 6 with this design and 6 with the tinsel, it's entirely up to you how you do your wreath. You could put this at all 6 on the bottom and the tinsel on the top, or vice versa, or do what I'm doing where you have it every other on the top layer. So you see both. Tight and low. See how much curlier it is? It's getting in my way. A lot of people do this standing up. I'm not a big stander upper. I sit and stand. I do both. You don't want to sit the whole time. You want to get some movement. All right. That really threw me for a loop for a minute. What the heck is going on here? Where'd this come from? And then I remembered, oh yeah, Marguerite, you did 2 different meshes for this kit. Skip that one. We're coming over here and using the final piece with the blue and white only border stripe that's matte versus the tinsel. Use the table to uncurl it. See how much curlier that is? This is definitely going to be, I'm going to put these up here to hold it, because look how curly that is. Use my table to unroll it. You can just stay. Fold it in half to find my center. Ruffle up the center. And use the 2 hands, one on the ruffle, one on the mesh to help, especially since it's so curly. Let's get up here. Okay, cooperate. See, it's very curly now. I'm not pulling it from the edge. I want to make sure that they're even. Yep, they're even. So I'm going to come over here and put this last one in the frame vertically of this designed mesh. Tight and low, twist it. 1, 2, 3. Find my outside cut edge on this side and cover the outside cut edge on the inside. Outside cut edge over the inside cut edge on this side. It's kind of pointy, so I see there's a dip over here. That's where I want to pull it out. That should help this. It didn't. So where does that end up on the other side? I just need to pull it out here a little. That'll help. Alright. Now we can go back and do the other 3 pieces that are the tinseled edges. Using the table. Much easier when it's not so tightly wound to curl. Doesn't fight me as much. Definitely feel that I get better results when I ruffle it this way versus the way I did on the bottom layer. But I like to give you options, and you determine what works best for you ultimately. I like that side better, so I'm going to put that one to the outside. Because again, that's the part that's going to be seen. Twist tight and low 2 to 3 times. Outside cut edge over inside cut edge. Outside cut edge over inside cut edge. Alright? There we go. Next we go to this one. Making sure my pipe cleaners are positioned correctly. Fold that in half. Clip it. Unroll it. Fold it in half. Stay down. Stay where I put you. Ooh, I like that one. That one came out super pretty. Put that in there. vertically. Tighten low. 1, 2, 3. Lift it out of the way. Take that outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. Outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. Make any adjustments you need to make. Skip that one because it's got the other mesh. And this is the last but not least piece of mesh. Use that table to uncurl it. Fold it in half. Always curl side down. Clip it in the center. Bring it out on the table. Fold it in half. Mark it with your finger. Start ruffling with the thumb on the outside. Gather up the center using the clip at the top as your guide to stay centered in the mesh. I tend to work a little bit at an angle. It's my comfort zone. You'll find yours. You just gotta practice. That's why these kits are great to start with. Tighten low. I'm going to take that pipe cleaner. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Lift it out of the way. And then I'm going to take that outside cut edge over the inside cut edge. Outside edge over inside edge. Get that out of the way. Cut some fray off there. Oh, that one came off by itself. Try to turn it over if it'll let you. Position your mesh how you want it. Adjust it as needed. Never handling it from the outer edge. Alright. So now you have a choice to make. You can either put the rest of the ribbon bundles in, or you can put the sign in. I tend to go with putting the sign in before the ribbon tails because I want the ribbon tails to overlap the sign a little bit. Unless it's a specific shape or sign, or you don't think you're going to be able to see the message of the sign, then I would put the ribbon first. So, I'm going to make sure all the pipe cleaners are to the outside of the wreath, stand up for the sign process. And then I'm going to make sure that one of the pipe cleaners is at 12 o'clock to me and one's at 6 o'clock. It's important to do that because that's how you know what your center is. This is going to fit between the other 4. And when I put it in, it's going to be upside down to you. I've tried to put them in right side up to you and upside down to me. And I always end up getting them cockeyed. So I'm going to pull these pipe cleaners up to the front of the sign so they're out of my way and I know where they are. And S, there's 3 letters. So obviously the center of the sign is the center of the S. Plus there's a clip on the back to help you. So I know that that needs to be even with that pipe cleaner. I'm putting this in between there. In between these 4 pipe cleaners. So that I know that it's centered in the wreath. I'm going to sit back down. Try not to knock everything down. And I'm going to... That looks like it's too far over to me. Is that the center? Yeah, that's the center right there. Okay, I'm alright. This is where this plastic embroidery needle comes in. These are 6 inches long. I love these. I had some that are the smaller ones, and if you get a really fluffy wreath, it's hard to get everything through the way you want to. I use this to feed the pipe cleaners from the signs through all of the mesh to the back of the frame. Okay, that way I'm not fighting with it. Yes, you can freehand just take your pipe cleaner and put it through the mesh to the back, but you'll find you're frustrated. It'll work when you're just starting, but I love this. Another maker taught us how to use these. So when you put the pipe cleaners on the back of the sign through the mesh, and there are 4 pipe cleaners, you're going to do it in an X formation. So you'll do this one to the, and then you'll do this one, and then this one, and then this one. The reason you do that is so that once you get your sign settled in to the wreath, it's not sticking up on one side and super deep on the other. You want it to be nice and flat and even when it's placed into the frame. So hopefully that makes sense. Now I want to make sure all the ribbon from the lower layer is out of the way because we don't want to try to put this through the ribbon. That'll damage it. So I'm putting it just a little bit under the sign next to the pipe cleaner. I fed it through the back of the frame, and then I'm just going to take the tip of this pipe cleaner, put it through it, fold it over a little so it stays on the needle, and pulls it through. Okay, I'm going to do this one, get it off of the needle in the back. It looks like it buckled a little bit through one of the pipe cleaner buckled, folded, bent, however you want to put it. There we go, now it's through. So now I'm going to do that one. So I'm always turning the wreath to me, to the point where I need to work on it. Okay. And when I did that one, I made sure that the needle was a little bit under the sign so that the pipe cleaner isn't visible from the side if you're walking through a door and you don't want to see all the mechanics. That's the bottom line. Nope, it goes right there. Right there. I made sure the ribbon was out of the way. Put this through, fold it over the tip, and put it through. I did that too soon. Did I make it all the way through? Yeah. Okay. So then I usually take the bubble wrap packaging and place it over the sign because I'm going to turn it over and I don't want the sign scratched, to protect the face of the sign while why is this one so resistant? It must have gone through one thread incorrectly of the mesh. See? You get to see. I missed it. Okay. I think I got it out. Yep. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this around the wire frame until it's gone. Okay. And I like to try to do that next to or around the same rings that the pipe cleaners are placed for the mesh attachment, because then that way it all blends together really well and you don't notice it. Especially if you have a glass door insert on the door that this is going on. When you get done twisting the pipe cleaner around the frame, I always take the sharp pointy end and poke it down into the wreath towards the front of the wreath, so that if there is a glass door and otherwise, so it doesn't scratch the door. This is a little bit elevated, the frame, so it shouldn't anyway, but always take the extra precautions. So now I'm going to grab the pipe cleaner where I need to attach the sign on the other side. I'm lifting it, not dragging it, and making sure it's on that bubble wrap that the sign came in, so that I have the extra protection. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to put it around the ring, and I'm also putting it around the ring where the other pipe cleaner is from the mesh. I did push down on the wreath a little bit before I did either of these, so that it does settle into the sign does settle into the wreath a little bit, but not too much. You don't want it to look puckered. Now we can turn it over, and it's secure in the space that it needs to be in. Piece of free. Don't get rid of this until you're done with the whole project. So now I'm going to go back. So I did the one here, and I did one here. So I'm going to go back and do these two here. So let me start here. Pull the pipe cleaner through the frame, just under the sign. Put a tip of the pipe cleaner into the needle. Pull it through. That one worked easily. Thank you. And then I'm going to turn it, go over here and do the same thing. Put it through the mesh, making sure none of the ribbon from the bottom layer is in the way. Fold that over the needle, pull it through. Not too bad. Put this back on the top so I can flip it over and secure the pipe cleaner to the frame. Twist it around the frame till it's gone, and then poke the tip back through, facing the front of the wreath so we don't scratch any doors. Those are things you need to consider. Lift it up and turn it so I can do the last one. Making sure it's on top of that bubble wrap. Bring it through and attach it. Twisting it around the frame where another pipe cleaner is from the mesh. Till it's completely twisted around the frame. Putting the point back down into the wreath. So let me see. I'm done with that now. Put that in the trash. Let me look at it. And I'll show you how that is. This is going to get tucked under a little bit better. And now we're going to put the ribbon on. Make sure there's any frays. Cut them at this point. Now, when I put the ribbon on the top, I always put the bundle at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock last because I like the way it looks laying on top of the bundles from the side. So I will do these two first and then these two. But I also have to remember that I have to put 3 of them every other with the stars outside and 3 of them with the stripes outside. So I have to remember the pattern as I'm doing this. So I'm going to do a blue and white stars. I'm not going to do the inverted V on the top layer because I'm going to splay out more like a starburst. I'm going to do tight and low 2 or 3 times with the pipe cleaner. 1, 2, 3. Now, before we go any further, you have to decide whether you want to twist up the pipe cleaner and tuck it behind the ribbon and cut off the excess, or if you want to make curly cues. I'm not going to cut anything, but I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate twisting it till you have 1.5 inches or so twist on the pipe cleaner so that I can put it behind the ribbon before I display the ribbon. You're going to pretend that that's not there. I've already cut it with the wire cutters. And then I'm going to spread out my ribbon. Okay? And then you'll just have a little bit of a bump of the pipe cleaner there. But I'm going to go with what I call curly cues. So we're going to take all this extra twist out. I've done the first 3. I'm going to position my ribbon. And on the top layer, I'm not going to do one side with the red out and one side with the red in. I'm going to do exactly the same on both sides. I am going to curl the ribbon as well as I go along because I can give it height that way. Even with a storm door, this will just set down. But I always like to start off with the curl, especially for displaying it and for pictures so people can see how fluffy it can really achieve. How much fluff it can really achieve. I can talk. So again, we're always placing the back first. Running my fingers over it, giving a curl. If you have a wooden dowel around, which I'm going to use to make my curly cues in a minute, this is a great tool to use for curling your ribbon too. Gives it a nice curl. Okay, so remember I said I'm going to do curly cues. I guess I could have said curly curls. I'm going to take these pipe cleaners and I'm going to wrap them around this dowel. If you don't have a dowel, a pencil is the same diameter. Use a pencil. Just twist it around and you can do one of 2 things. You can leave it curled up tight like that, or when you do the other side, I'll show you. You can leave them open by pulling it like this, and you can leave it like that, or you could put styrofoam balls, glittery styrofoam balls in there. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to leave it nice and tight and in the center of my ribbon tail bundle. It's up to you what you want to do. Okay. So that means this one should have the stripes on the outside. So I got to remember that before I put it into the wreath. Okay. I'm not doing the inverted V. I'm making sure my pipe cleaners are vertical. As my ribbon goes in horizontal, tight and low 3 times. And then I'm going to display my ribbon. I'm not going to put the stars and stripe on the outside on all 6. Just like I'm flip-flopping between the stars and the stripes every other, I'm going to put the stars and stripe to the center every other. Another way to add dimension to your wreath. Okay, so now the red and white check is on the outside. Okay, see what I did there? And just as a reminder, anytime you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability to help you out. I didn't turn that enough, so I didn't place those very nicely. So let me fix that. All right. I mean, you could definitely put it under the letters. It's covering the tip of the A, but for me, I don't mind. Get my wooden dowel back out. Twist that down, facing that way. The other one I'm twisting the opposite direction, towards me. Inside away, outside towards me. Yes, I'm probably going to have to fluff the ribbon again. When you become a wreath maker, you become, for the most part, as everybody I know at least, you can handle ribbon all day. We love our ribbon. Okay, so I'm skipping this, I'm skipping that, so I'm going to turn it all the way around so it's right side up to you. And I'm going to do this one and then that one. So this one and this one should be the same. So stars out, stars and stripe ribbon on the outside edge. Tight, low, 1, 2, 3. Lift and separate. Separate. It goes out there. It goes out there. It goes there. Same thing on this one. Lift and separate. Trying not to cover up the sign too much, just framing it. Get out here. Twist or away from me on the inner side of the pipe cleaner. Twist towards me. So you can see, even though there's a basic recipe for this style of wreath, there are modifications and changes you can make to make it a little different from time to time. So now this should be the stripes on the outside, ruffle, tight and low, 1, 2, 3. Red on the inside, white in the middle, and stripes on the outside. Some people even take all 3 pieces of ribbon at the same time to curl them with that. You can do that as well. Get that little bubble out of there. Come on, work with me, ribbon. So see, that made it a little fluffier even. I like that. I like fluffy. Because like I said, the door is going to lay it flat, but not make it look smushed. Even if you put that little bit of curl in it. This is outwards towards me. Okay, so I'm going to pull it out here a little bit more so it's not covering the U in the USA as much. Okay, there's that. So now we can do 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So that means this side right here should have the blue stars facing the outside edge of the wreath. I just have to fix that one if you didn't notice. It's backwards. I did them the same. Switch. Switch it. Reverse. See, even after 7 years, I still miss stuff sometimes. You get in a rut. Not a rut, a routine. Alright, so this means that the red should go towards the center of the wreath. And then there's the white. And this. Let's do the other side. Red and white. Up. White in the center. And I'll stand at the end to fluff the top and make sure it looks right. Okay. Curl one side towards the center. Curl one side towards myself, the outside of the wreath. Standing up is a good position when you're making sure everything looks straight. It needs to be straight. So I'll do that in a minute. Last bundle of ribbon. So, a bit of fray right there on the tip. I didn't cut it completely, I guess. So now this means that the blue goes to the inside and the stripe goes to the outside because it's blue, blue on the outside. So every other has the blue on the outside, every other has the blue on the inside. 2, 3. So this means red out, red and white. Running my fingers over it, pushing out the bubbles as I go, making sure it's nice and neat as possible. Curling it a little bit there. One last set. Sure these are placed. So if one side's there, one side's there. So these now sit on top of the bundles on both sides, top and bottom. Curled. I'm really concentrating and I've been talking a lot, then all of a sudden I get quiet. Alright, I'm going to stand up. And then I'm going to go back. Make sure none of the tips are going towards the ceiling of the ribbon. And then I'm going to lift the mesh from the top layer to make sure that the ribbon on the bottom layer gets pulled out to the edge without catching on all the mesh and putting little frays in it. Lift that top mesh out of the way. So you want to see all that beautiful ribbon. And you don't just pull on it without moving the mesh out of the way. You don't want to do that. You can, but you're going to potentially fray your ribbon. I don't want to do that. I think that was it, right? Well, maybe this one. Just to be safe, we'll do it. Alright. There you have it. Thank you again for joining me today while we made this beautiful Patriotic USA wreath. I love it. I think this will be a great seller this year for sure. People are feeling especially patriotic these days. And the fact that you can put it anywhere, but specifically behind a storm door, is one of the greatest features of it at all. I hope that I was able to break this down to make this easy for you. It really is simple when you break it down into the steps, and having the kit with all the supplies you need are great. You're not left with a bunch of materials you may or may not use. I hope that you do more projects. I hope you buy some more kits. Come back and join us. But at least this way, if for some reason you decide not to, you're not left with a bunch of extra supplies. That's the benefit of buying the kit, and the fact that I can keep the prices lower so that you can afford to do that easily. I thank you so much for joining me today. I know you have many things you could be doing with your time, and the fact that you're spending your time with me, watching me make this project to help you make beautiful things as well. It means a lot to me. So thanks again. Everybody enjoy. If you like what you saw, subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Wreaths by Marguerite is my name on all the platforms. I just don't do TikTok. So thanks again. Enjoy and have a great patriotic holiday season. Bye-bye.